sequence. Image format, EXR. I need to change that to a TIFF. Don't ask me about EXR, just make sure it's TIFF. Just leave it there. Next, I need to, you look here, right? Comment file name, right? This shows us that image sequence is going to be the name of the file, simple guide turntable render. That's the name of my file, right? So I need you to name your file first. Name it something, you know, that has good information, because I named it turntable render, so name it something along those lines. Don't give it some arbitrary generic name or something that's super long, right? And then .0007, that's the that has to do with ignore that for now. Okay, so I talked about this TIFF format. Leave everything else alone. This here, frame animation extension, what is this? Well, I need to set this to name, file name, that's the name of the image sequence. Number meaning how many, the frame count. Extension meaning is TIFF, so I need to select that. And this automatically changes. This also gets highlighted, it opens up before it's grayed out. Now it's open. Frame range. So what's the frame range? Well, the frame range is going to be from frame 1 to, I think what, 47? Right? 1 to, end frame is at 47. Not 48. I'm going to explain why. So 1 through 47, right? And you notice here, this also changes. Oh, I have your .007 because my file name is called .0007. So I'm going to change this to a better name. I'm going to file save scene as simple guide turntable turntable sequence. That's what I'm going to save the file as. As soon as I did that, my image, my name dot number dot extension changes to simple guy underscore turntable underscore sequence, right? Because that's a file name. And then you see here .0001, that's here. That's 1. Why is there 3 zeros? Right, that's to help prevent overlapping file name, overlapping numerical sequences. So that happens from here, frame padding, how many zeros. So basically it says 4, but it's actually 3, up to 4 anyhow. So that's 3 zeros and then 1, 2 zeros and 47. And again, that's to prevent numbers that are gonna confuse itself, and it'll still run in sequential order. So 1 through 1, start frame 1, end frame 47. I will explain why. And renderable camera, I have it just set to my perspective camera. I have this at HD 1080 image size. I talked about that before to set that up previously. And then that's it. This is TIFF, right? Name dot number dot extension. Make sure to have this. If you don't have this, you are screwed. Make sure this is set up. If this is not set up, you are screwed. And that's it. Under render, make sure this is 10 at 8. 8 is a great number. It'll be crisp and clean. Hit close. So everything is set up. Now, from there, what's gonna happen is that I need to launch the image render sequence. So what you want to do is go under modeling, right, the drop down menu, change it from modeling, change it to rendering. When you change it to rendering, this top display of menu items changes. I'm gonna go into render, and I'm gonna go render sequence option box, right, frame 1 through 47, and render on camera perspective. Leave everything else alone. Folder, right, it's gonna save to this, right, under the images folder. It's gonna go under images folder. See, current project, images. I'm gonna click on the new folder icon. I'm gonna name it right, simplify turntable, and then say sequence. I just name that folder, hit, and I have it selected. I press select. Now, see, this is a folder where all the image renders are gonna dump into this folder, which is inside of the images folder, right, of project 3 directory, right? And then from there, I'm just gonna close it for now, because there's one more thing I need to do, right? So the last thing I need to do, right, is I need to make the turntable spinning animation. I'm gonna select this the character, right? I'm gonna also select the platform, right? I'm gonna press Control G as in George to group it. See what that just happened? Turn green, and you notice that it made a group 1. If I crack it open, you see both of the assets in there. I'm gonna name this character group or something like that, you know, just give it a freaking name, right? And you notice that, see how it's dead centered, right? Dead centered. This is the area light. Anyway, so I'm gonna go to frame 1, right? I need to set a keyframe. Keyframe meaning that to start the animation, it's gonna start from the front. See, this is the front. You can see his feet. You can see his thumbs. Frame 1. I'm gonna press S as in Sam. That leaves a red mark. That means I have a keyframe. Again, I have the group selected. I have the group selected. That group has a keyframe now, and it's on frame 1. In the channel box, you can see it's all red. You notice how the rotates are all 0. No movement's been applied. I want this to spin 360 degrees all the way around, and I want to do that full spin within 2 seconds. 2 seconds is just right of a timing for it to spin. Anything longer or shorter is just either too short or too long, right? So I'm gonna go all the way to frame 40. Frame 48. 48. Not 47, 48. Why 48? Because if I do 24 frames per second, 24 frames per second times 2 for 2 seconds long, that gives me 48 frames for 2 seconds. And here, right, I'm gonna press E as in Edward for the rotate. I'm gonna wanna rotate like this, right? That is 360 degrees. That's under the axis rotate Y. I have 360 degrees plus some change. I need to type in 360 and press enter, right? It's all red. But if you look here, there's no tick mark. Even though I typed in 360 and I press enter, right? There's no tick mark to show that there's a keyframe set. In order to do that, I need to press S. See, now there's a keyframe and I see this blue line. That means that, I think that means it's cached. It has to do with the playback cache and stuff. I don't want to talk about that. I'm tired. All I know is that now it spins. You see here, and you see how it's a lighter shade of gray, there's lighter shade of red, like a pinkish red. That means it's an in-between. And then when it gets to the end, dark red. Lighter red for the in-between, dark red at the main key points. To play it, to play the loop of animation, I press Alt and V as in Victor. Hold Alt and just click on V as in Victor. That will activate the turntable. You notice how it pauses, see? Boom, a slight pause. And you also notice that it slowly picks up speed and it slowly ends. See? Barely noticeable, but it's there. A slight pause at the beginning, a slight pause at the end. And it also has a stop. Okay. I'm going to show what I'm talking about. So it ends at frame 48. But if I pull this, if I pull the slider, right, now it says 47, meaning that the length of time is up to frame 47. If I pull it like that again, length of time is up to 48. I'm going to yank that, right? So it's 47. I'm going to show the difference. Alt V as in Victor to play the animation. So there's a little bit less of a stall. The reason why is that frame 1 and frame 48, they're the same frame. If I play the frame 1 and 48, that means that there's going to be a slight pause because it's the same freaking frame. But if I go from 1 to 47, it's not the same. Because if this loops, it'll go from 47 and it'll loop back to 1. And then it'll be perfect. But you'll notice there's still a slight pause. If I play Alt V as in Victor, there's going to be a pause. I'm going to show it via something called the graph editor. So here, right, again, everything was done while having the group selected, all green, or keyframe, keyframe. If you did not do that, you did not do it right. I'm going to go under Windows, Animation Editors, Graph Editor. This is the graph editor, right? And if I don't select anything, I won't see anything here. Nothing here. If I select the character group, now you see this and you see this. This basically tells me this green, right? If I select it, it selects the rotate Y, which is the rotation. If I click on it, so you can only see that. This tells me slowly starts, a bit of a slow start. It picks up speed, rotating, and it's slowly at the apex. The curvature tells me it tells you the velocity, so it slows down. And you see how it's grayed out here. Anything after 47 is grayed out. That's because the playhead range is up to 47. See? So anyway, I want this to be linear, no slowing in, no slowing out. The way you do that, right, is to click this linear tangents. Bam. See, even this slightly moved. So it changed the velocity to be constant, a constant line. So if I play it, Alt V as in Victor, see, you notice that the animation is constant. There's no slight pause. Nice and steady. The pace is steady. So that's what that is. Again, select the character group. You click on linear to make it straight. And I have the playhead range from 1 to 47. One frame just before it resets at 48. Because at 48, right? You can see I'm moving the graph editor to 48. 48 and 1, watch. Here's 48 that I moved onto the graph, moved onto that frame by using the graph editor. If I click on, if you look here, and if I also click on 1, that's the same frame. See, exact same frame, and I don't need that because it'll just have ever so slight pause, and you don't want that. You don't need to render out frame 48 because this freaking thing is gonna loop anyway back to frame 1. That's why you don't need frame 48. So now it's complete. Everything is set up and complete and ready to rock. So that's everything. Yeah. And then you go back into render. Make sure I'm rendering menu. Render sequence option box. And then I have it set to perspective. I have my folder set up. I know where it's gonna save to. Right? Images folder, and it's gonna be saved into the simple guy sequence folder that I just made, turntable that I named. Right? See this right here. Then you hit render sequence. And then when you do render sequence, right? So if I do the render sequence, it's gonna pop up a render view panel. I'm just afraid of pressing render sequence because it may or it may not corrupt the video screen recording. But I guess I could show it. If it crashes, now you know why it's crashing. But again, let me just show one last thing, right? Because like I said, there's gonna be someone or some other group of students, right? At least 2 or 3 that's gonna forget this. You wanna go double check your AI shadow mat. Select it, materials selected, click on this middle icon, select it, Control A. Make sure this is unchecked. I repeat, make sure this is unchecked. Make sure you don't mess with this. Make sure this is a scene background. Do not screw with this. This should be grayed out. Do not screw with this. Shadow color, make it a little bit lighter. Right? And then If I click on ambient occlusion, make sure your samples is set to 8. Right? Your area light, make sure it's big and fat. Make sure you set the exposure to 4. Yeah. And then your render settings, make sure you're on the renderer, your sampling, make sure this is at 8. Make sure your imagers, that the default Arnold denoiser is on, you know. Make sure under your comment tab, that is set to TIFF. You know, make sure it's set to frame animation extension name dot number hashtag dot extension. Set your frame range from 1 to 47. So it only renders frame 1 to frame 47. You do not need frame 48. 48 is the same as frame 1. Renderable cameras. This by default should be at perspective. Lastly, image size HD 1080. And also system tab, make sure you have GPU rendering checked on. Enable, also highlight. And then that is literally everything. If you follow everything, nothing should go wrong. Unless your graphics card drivers aren't updated. But that's another story. So that's everything. And you can do one last test render. Right? One last test render. Let's see, I said something like here. Control U. Hey, make goddamn render. There. Again, this only took me 3 seconds. Excellent quality at 3 seconds with the graphics card that I'm using. And that's it. I'm gonna save it. And I'm gonna show what's gonna happen. So again, this panel is render, which is under rendering menu, render sequence option box. Oh, look at that, why didn't it change? Ooh, yeah. Make sure this is set to perspective. It's good I showed this again. Why did that should have been set to perspective. Whatever, so make sure this is freaking perspective. Then you hit render sequence. I want to show that right now. And this will pop up. And this shows as rendering through the sequences. Every 3 seconds it changes. See? And you notice here, processing, and each frame count, it will move. And when I click on my folder, Maya, projects, project 3, images, simple guide turntable sequence, and here it is. And this is completely gray, right? So it's good. It's rendering out. And that's it. That's everything. So I had paused the video for a moment. This is everything here. From frame 1 to frame 47. Like I said, I did not need frame 48. That's everything. If I hover over it, you can see it's 1920 by 1080 TIFF file. And then when you have all of this, right, ready to go, you want to bring it into Premiere and lay it out and run the sequence on the timeline and compile it together at 24 frames per second, say it's an MPEG, blah 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 blah, and you create the video. I'm not going to go over that because you guys should know that by now because of taking the previous class, the image foundations, right? So that's pretty much everything. Now that, but there's videos on YouTube, blah 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 blah, and just make the video. Make it in Premiere. Do not make it in After Effects. Make it in Premiere. And that's everything. Alright, bye.